Yeah. All right, let's watch this. Okay, we might have just enough time. Man, time has flown by. I remember watching Bleach.
Yeah, you saw the title of my video, and I'm just gonna be honest here, I don't think Dimension Shifter is a huge problem that people make it out to be. Yes, I do agree that the card is annoying at times, however, I don't see the TCG banning or limiting him at the time of recording this video. They might semi-limit Shifter, but I don't think they'll do that either. Basically in this video, I'm going over 3 points on why I think Shifter is not the problem. Now, let me make a disclaimer, this is my opinion, so I could be wrong here, but the way I see things, there's a bigger problem than Shifter, so I'll be explaining that in the video. So let's get started, shall we?
Alright,
starting off with point number 1, Dimension Shifter's entire purpose. You know, it's rare in Yu-Gi-Oh! History for Konami to tell us why they made a card. There are only a few cases where they told us what a card's purpose is, and...
Oh my god, I have to admit, chat, I actually never thought about this. No! Hold on. To help you stage a comeback against some of the fastest strategies that might come from your opponent. AKA, this was literally made to slow down combo decks. And the combo players just cry about it. Even though, what was the purpose of this card? To slow combo decks down. What does the card do? Slows combo decks down. What's the problem? Unless you're just one of those let me combo Bible thump players. Like, this is literally the purpose of the card. It's slow combo. Like, no one has a problem with Nibiru, so why I got a problem with Shifter?
And the TCG
exactly. Cry about it, combo players.
TCG did give us a reason as to why they created Shifter in the first place. If you go on the Yu-Gi-Oh! Website and look at the 2019 Megaton, in the description, you can see them talking about 3 world premiere cards designed to counter fast-paced combo decks. And one of those descriptions talks about punishing your opponent for graveyard dumping. This is clearly talking about D-Shifter, and I'll be honest here, their logic kind of makes sense. Why, you ask? Well, I feel like I can make an argument that graveyard-based combo decks are the strongest types of combo decks in the game, as they're using the graveyard as a second hand. Getting cards into the graveyard has always been an easy task since DM with Painful Choice, and we have had a lot of powerful graveyard effects over the years since the GX era with things like Malicious, Level Leader, and much more. Furthermore, some have floating abilities which makes your common board breakers risky to use as you don't want your opponent to gain any advantage back, so if you don't kill them this turn, they can just rebuild their board on their next turn. Some notable graveyard-based combo decks are Shaddolls, Burning Abyss, Grass Decks, Phantom Knights, and most famously, Tearlaman. This brings me to a question I have for all of you. How are you supposed to beat Tear without playing the mirror match and surviving going second?
You don't. That's literally the answer, chat. That's what the Tear players like. How are you supposed to beat Tear if you go second and you're not playing Tear? Like you don't. Is really that Soul Drain, Mako D. I mean, none of those cards work if they go first though. Like if they go, Unban Max C might be an answer. But like none of those floodgates do anything if the Tear player goes first. Which, by the way, you guys remember when Konami was like, we're going to unban Dimensional Fissure, it'll counter Tear, and then nobody played it because it was terrible. Cool. So that's just like, that's literally an example.
Bestials, you say? That is true, but they didn't work all the time since all the cards in Tear were at 3. Shifter was one of, if not the best possible chance you had to beat that deck. Now, I know some people are going to comment like this and say that Tear is dead so it doesn't matter anymore. However, I have another question. Do you really think Konami's going to stop printing graveyard-based decks? They just made Memento, which I know isn't too good, but my point is that these types of decks aren't going away. Konami will still print them even after Tearlaman. In fact, Tear kind of shows why D-Shifter is necessary, so you can have some sort of comeback against these types of decks. And without Shifter, the format could be a lot worse. Basically, to put this point in short, D-Shifter is a necessary evil to give players a chance against graveyard-based combo decks. Before I move to my next point, one argument I bet people will say is that Maxi was specifically designed to counter combo decks like X-Saber and Six Samurai, according to Kevin Tewart, which are similar to the combo decks we have today.
I have to admit, chat, I did not know this. Oh my god. I did not know this. They made this card specifically to counter Samurai and X-Saber? I did not know this. Clueless? What do you mean, Clueless? You didn't know this. That Maxi, because Maxi is a TCG exclusive, chat. Or it was a TCG exclusive out of what? Storm of Ragnarok? I didn't know that, like, oh, that's specifically why, because the Samurai stuff did come out in Storm of Ragnarok. X-Saber was already popping by that point. So, like, yeah, it's like, okay, we're going to release these combo decks have gotten out of hand. Effect Veiler's not good enough. We need something even crazier. Wow, I learned something today.
And that card still got banned. So what's the difference between it and Shifter? Well, to that, here's my answer. Point number 2. Dimension Shifter's downsides.
Yes!
I'm not making this up, but people think that D-Shifter is just as poorly designed as Max C.
True! No one ever went, bro. Every time I bring this up, people just ignore it. When I'm like, well, D-Shifter has like a lot of downsides. It's a high-level monster. Because you guys remember, by the way, chat, for anyone gonna say, oh, Cap, the level doesn't matter. You guys do know in the OCG, they used to summon Max C and Sprite, then they used to bounce it to their freaking hand. So, like, you could literally get the Max C turn 0 in Sprite. That's a thing where, like, the level actually mattered. D-Shifter is a high-level monster that's almost impossible to summon, and if a single card gets in your graveyard, it's basically dead for the whole game, unless you're playing, like, specifically Floowandereeze. Like, those are real downsides.
And I just can't agree with that comparison. Max C is way more unbalanced than D-Shifter. I'll admit, their lingering effects are powerful, but there's much more to what makes Max C more broken compared to Shifter. Some notable ones are that you can use Max C whenever you want, and draw as many times as your opponent's special summons without any sort of downside. Other than counters which don't always justify a card to stay in the meta, Max C itself has no downsides to it, but Shifter on the other hand does. The biggest one is that you can't use the card whenever you want, unlike Max C. There will be games where people will draw Shifter after turn 1, and it will be a dead card because now you got stuff in your graveyard.
Yep.
Some of the downside Shifter has is that you're under his effect as well, so it won't be a one-side macrocosmos. Before I bring up another one, people will say something like Gamma had a lot of downsides to it, and that card still got hit, which is true, but one thing Gamma has that D-Shifter doesn't is that you can summon Gamma during your turn, which can lead to Synchro and Link plays, most notably the Excel Stardust play. Same thing can be said with the Ghost Sisters sometimes, but with D-Shifter, you can't really summon the card because they made it a level 6 on purpose. This is to avoid this card being abused in any other needs. So despite what people think, D-Shifter does have downsides to it. I do believe that Konami R&D thought carefully to avoid another Max C situation, where the card is overwhelmingly busted, leading it to possibly being banned. However, one argument I know people will say is that turn 1 matters so much in Yu-Gi-Oh! And D-Shifter can win games on its own, so why do these downsides matter? The reason why they matter has to do with my final point, and that's point number 3. Shifter is not the problem, it's the format. To understand this point, we gotta look at another hand trap that people have wanted to ban, Droll and Lockbird. People have argued that Droll is ban-worthy for the same reason as Shifter, being that their lingering effects are too oppressive. Though Simo, Team APS, and Joshua Smith have all argued that it's not Droll's fault, but the format he is in, as you have a lot.
Hey, Twitch chat. Could you not then, I think I get the point Dark Emperor is making. So if everyone always says Droll is not the problem, it's the format that Droll's in that's busted and has too much searching, why could you not make the same argument about Dimension Shifter? Like Shifter's only good in this format because too much graveyard. Sausage. Droll is just unfun. I mean, I don't know. Like, play a deck that doesn't search. Because Maxi's good in every format. Unless the best decks are like Sky Striker and Flu, Maxi's good in every, just like Ash, honestly. Like, they're good in every format.
So, the combo decks that dominate the meta.
Droll
However, their biggest weakness is that they rely on searching, which is why Droll is needed to counter them. And I can agree with this, as formats where Droll was used were kind of toxic. Some examples are Tier 0 Spiral, Drytron, and most recently Super Heavy Samurai. You're probably wondering where I'm going with this, but I believe that the same logic can be applied to Dimension Shifter in his own right. Basically, I feel like Shifter is only relevant depending on the format he is in, and this can be decided in two ways. The first way correlates with my first point. If there's a graveyard-based combo deck running around the meta, people will use Shifter to counter it. As for the second way, it correlates with my second point, by having decks that can either play around Shifter or specialize in banishing. The reason why Shifter's downsides matter is that not every deck can use it, mainly because your own cards get banished too, and a lot of decks can't afford that, leading to only a select few that can take advantage of it. Some examples include Exo Sisters, Vanquished Soul, and Guru Control. However, one question I have is this. Would these decks ruin the meta just because they can play Shifter?
No.
I believe the answer is no. While I do see these decks getting top cuts on high competitive levels from time to time, I don't believe they'll take over the meta just because they can play Shifter. Plus, they can't really search Shifter and they rely heavily on the grind game to beat you, so you don't have to worry about them killing you after they shifted you.
Yeah, the honest to God truth is, chat, even if you Shifter in any of these three decks, it's not that insane. Like, it's only insane in Flu because they can recycle. They could just put Shifter on top of their deck and then they can Shifter you again, so they could do it, like, infinitely. And Kashtira, because Kashtira, like, every monster is, like, 2,500. So Kashtira can actually just kill you in one turn if you don't do anything. But it's really not it's not really that insane in this deck, in these three decks. Because in Vanquished Soul, like, if you Shifter, you can't really even go on the Rock. Otherwise, the card that you use to summon Rock gets banished forever. And you can't use Continue because you don't have a graveyard. So, like, it's not really that insane in this deck, to be honest. And same with this deck can't kill you. It's like one monster.
Again, these decks are good, but they can't really take over the meta, and Shifter being at 3 won't help them do that. However, there are decks that have seen competitive success and who have always main deck 3 Shifters.
Yeah, these decks can do more.
Those decks being Kashtira and Floowandereeze. I will admit, these decks being able to use Shifter to their advantage is nuts, though I have another question for all of you. Is D-Shifter the main reason why these two decks were so dominant? If you think the answer is yes, well, I disagree, and I can prove it. Look at Floowandereeze. Are they still—
Bro, press 1 to bring this card back. I don't care what anyone says. Bring this card back. So, like, we can have the anti-combo deck. I just think it's so funny that, like, Flu it's like a baby combo deck, but it just doesn't special summon. Like, press 1 to bring this card back. Seriously. Bring this card back. Stop capping.
Still a meta deck?
Hell no.
Ever since the Wind Barrier strategy got banned, they haven't really done much in the meta. Sure, it might have gone a top here and there, but regardless, Shifter at 3 isn't the main source as to why that archetype was a meta deck. It did play a part because they could use it multiple turns, but it wasn't the main reason why they were so dominant in the meta. Now, moving on to the biggest offender, Kashtira. Again, I gotta ask, is Shifter the main reason why this deck became the best deck of the format, or at least right now the most threatening deck? Again, no it's not. The main reason is because these two cards, Arise Heart and number 89 Diabolos, are what made Kashtira the best deck in the game. First, you have Diabolos, who can banish multiple cards from your opponent's deck, as well as take Shangri-La's zone locking ability to disgusting levels. And then there's Arise Heart, who has the power to gatekeep an entire format, as you have to put in cards like Book of Moon to beat him. Basically, if your deck can't beat Arise Heart, then you have no chance of beating Kashtira in this format. These two Xyz monsters are what made Kashtira so frustrating to fight against, and while Shifter does play a part, like he did in Floowandereeze, he's not the main reason as to why Kashtira is the best deck in the game. I can probably make a bet that even if Shifter didn't exist, Kashtira would still be the best deck regardless, mainly because of these two Xyz monsters. To wrap this video up, the point I'm trying to make here is that Shifter was never the main problem. Yes, he can be frustrating, but at the same time, he can really be a format-dependent card. And the real bigger problem is just how Yu-Gi-Oh! Is now. I said in the first point, Shifter is a necessary evil, and if TCG was going to hit him, the best I could see is semi-limited, but I just don't even see that happening. Regardless, I could be wrong about all of this, but I just wanted to share my opinion on this topic as it's gotten pretty big over the years. I hope you enjoy.
I mean, I think it's gotten really big this year. But if you want to say Cap, that's not true. Shifter has been insane in every format over the YCS Vegas, chat. That was the first format for Photon Hypernova. I don't think Shifter was that good at that event, chat. Like that is the prime event that I will point to where I'll be like, because that was immediately after Tier died, and I don't think Shifter was that good. And I think like if you played Cash, you probably didn't even want to play Shifter in the main deck because there was so much Cash Tira, and it's not good against Labyrinth either. And like the best 3 decks going into that event were expected to be Cash Tira, Branded, and Labyrinth, maybe Sprite, who knows. But like Shifter is really not that good against any of those decks. I mean, maybe it's okay against Branded, I guess. But yeah. This is why Enzo didn't win that. So this video is saying just ban all the cash cards. I mean, you don't need to ban an entire archetype. The only archetype that deserves to have like all its cards banned is Tier Element. I think what's it called? Because everyone was playing Cash. Okay, but that doesn't disprove my point. If everyone's playing Cash, then Shifter's not that good then. I mean, it wasn't like Cash was Tier 0 at the event, but yeah, chat, I have to be honest. Did you guys find this video compelling? Yay or nay? I think this was an excellent video. It's like certain Yu-Gi-Oh cards, chat, have an intended purpose. Let them eat cake. Like, let a Yu-Gi-Oh card do its job. It was supposed to prevent graveyard dumping and slow down combo decks. That's the entire point. It's not Shifter's fault that your stupid Dragon Link deck dies because you can't use the graveyard. Find different combo lines. You know what I mean? I actually shifted a Dragon Link player with Vanquish Soul, and he literally just he had like 5 cards in Chaos Space and all this shit. He just ended on Seal Pass. And I summoned Fenrir and just waxed his ass. It was actually hilarious. Shifter is fine. Cash and Tier have been two of the least fun archetypes printed, in my opinion. Here's my I think that that's fine to have that opinion. What the Kiba? I just think it's a problem when everyone acts like Tier was the epitome of Yu-Gi-Oh! And Cash Tira was the lowest point of Yu-Gi-Oh! People act like they are complete polar opposites, like Tier format is the greatest the game has ever been, Cash format is the worst the game's ever been, and it's pretty much just off the back of like 2 pro players and 1 Yu-Gi tuber. And it's like, God, this community is so fucking dumb and brainwashed. Like, can you form your own opinion? Like, neither, if you want to say like, oh, they're both they're both like unfun, both decks are broken. I mean, Tier was so much more broken than Cash. I don't even understand the argument there. I could explain it. I mean, you could try. I don't think having a quarter of my deck milled during my opponent's turn 0, them setting up Omni Negates and Floodgates is very fun. And everyone will say there are no Floodgates in Tier format until you tell them the Floodgates, and then they just ignore it, right? They say, oh, there are no Floodgates in Tier format, Cap. Number 41, Baguska, Abyss Dweller, Dimension Shifter. There's 3 Floodgates I just named. They're all prominent in Tier format. What's your response? Like, there's tons of Floodgates in Tier format, and half of them are in the extra deck, so it makes it even worse. Jerome not letting Cash live for 7 months, or Jerome letting Cash. I mean, they did try hitting Cash twice. They just weren't. And like, and by the way, chat, hold on. Cash still being the best deck. Whose fault is that, Twitch chat? Whose fault is it that Cash Tier is still the best deck? I'm gonna tell you, and you guys are not gonna like it. I'm gonna tell you, you guys aren't gonna like it. If you're in the Mortal Kombat, be careful. Spoilers are out due to early copies. It's Jerome's. No, it's the Yu-Gi-Oh community's fault, chat. Because what did everyone say after the Photon Hypernova format, chat? Everyone was, zone lock, ban Mind Hacker. And what did Konami do, chat? What did Konami do when everyone was saying ban Mind Hacker? They banned Mind Hacker. And everyone was like, yo, problem solved. And then Cash was still the best deck. So whose fault was it really, chat? Whose fault was it really, chat? Everyone was like, yo, ban Mindhacker. This is the problem. It's like, maybe it's a Rise Heart. I don't know. But everyone said ban Mindhacker, and Konami banned Mindhacker. Surprise! That's not actually the reason Cashier is the best deck. So there you go.